So I hope you watched the video that I had uploaded last, for the last meeting, because we'll be generally building, from previous meetings, because that is the format we'll follow. We were no, these are not random sessions, no, like we are meeting in successive weeks. So obviously, what we do previous week, will build upon that. So just to give a brief recap, what we did last week was I had basically given a brief overview of my own life, story little bit, the critical incidents, what happened, and how they shaped my thought process, and how I got exposed to different areas like homeopathy, Ayurveda, etc., astrology, and all. How I got into those things, and so how exploring all these kinds of areas led me on my journey where it became very relevant, very much evident to me that purpose of life is not only to eat and to survive and to earn money and to gain status and just die one day. There is something bigger happening in life that kind of dawned upon me, and especially knowledge of astrology, and especially helped a lot to see that we are not isolated entities. In this universe we are very much integrated, very much connected to even other people and non-physical entities also, like the planets, for example. So and science also has started to understand a little bit, especially quantum physics and all, is throwing a lot of insights of this type, that the world as it appears on the surface, it is not the same way in its deeper foundations. So this also, I also could understand that. So, and also there seems to be some purpose behind the creation. It's not a purposeless creation. On surface it seems as if it's random, things are random, but when we go deeper we see that there is some kind of a purpose. And whenever there is some kind of a purpose, obviously we can intuit that there is a higher intelligence behind all these things, because purpose cannot come from unintelligent thing. So there is something very intelligent which is guiding all of us, so to speak, in our journey. So in There is a personality, those of you who studied There is a Personality with me, you remember Carl Gustav Jung's theory, where he talks about synchronicity, if you remember. So synchronicity was a major component of Jung's theory, and I personally in my life I have had a series of synchronous events, which right, they which propelled me despite my unwillingness initially. I was also just like anyone else, and trying to chase money, trying to chase success, and I studied finance. I wanted to study stock markets. I wanted to make a lot of money. I was playing stock market for quite a number of years, very passionately. But so I was very unwilling to go off the beaten track. There was a point in time where, but literally I was hammered by something higher than me into a different pathway. Okay, I was trapped in situations where despite all my intelligence I cannot extricate myself. Okay, so I lost all my money. I lost a lot of my reputation with my father, my family, in that stock market phase. I burned a lot of money and lost my reputation also. So there were some trust issues. People started doubting my integrity in the family itself. So it was like a kind of a very excruciating phase of my life, where in a way the ego died actually to a large extent, and it was a very shameful period, deep embarrassment, deep shame in facing your own father. Like when I was going home in that time, I remember I was literally, shivering in my, not shivering in a frightening sense, in the sense that how I will meet my father, how I will look into his eyes. And my father's credit, he didn't say anything. He just, he just asked me, is there any hope of recovering the money? And I said no, and I had lost his money also. So he simply went to the other room. I'm sure he would be very furious, but he did not, show it at that time, to his credit. And his silence actually hurt me very deeply, actually, because sometimes when someone very close to you is very silent, and you know that there's a ocean of emotions inside the heart, you feel very much disturbed. So it was a very critical phase of my life. But then that is when I turned track, and I applied to IIM Calcutta FPM program. And I had applied for both finance and OB. Okay, finance being my earlier specialization, I was teaching finance also, and OB being area where I was always very good. Okay, and The faculty who was teaching OB, he used to tell me that I should go into OB, and because I'm a natural for that. So then I heard his advice and I applied for both streams. And as luck would have it, I didn't make it through finance despite having the credentials and all the background in that. And I was forced to take up OB. I'm saying the word forced. It was not as if it was my first choice, it was my second choice. But at that point of time, to redeem my social honor, I am Calcutta PhD would help, that I'm good enough after stopping studying for so many years to clear CAT. And in those days, you had to write CAT, just like, with other people. And I'm good enough to get into an IIM. That was in a way to redeem myself socially. People again started to say that yes, yes, he's very talented. He just went off track for some time like that. Then I bounced back, did PhD, and then today I'm before you. And you know what I'm saying? I was given this topic of happiness in the sense I started thinking about, I will tell you how and there also finance connection helped actually. So in finance, we have this system of, companies being rated by credit rating agencies. CRISIL and ICRA and all rate the companies. So I started thinking that why can't we rate companies also for their, ability to provide happiness to their employees and happiness to their stakeholders? That is how the idea came to my mind. Just like we have, credit rating, we can have a rating for companies' ethical behavior, because without their ethical behavior, the stakeholders won't be happy or satisfied with them. So this, corporate, happiness index, something like that. The idea came to my head, and I was cooking this idea for almost close to a year. And but then ultimately, faculty told in IIM Calcutta that this is a good consultancy idea. This is something, you can create a business out of it. But for PhD, this will not suffice. In PhD, we need to, go for literature review and look at existing literature and find some gaps and all that. So, this is before I had studied methodology formally. So that is how, but then this idea of happiness stuck to my head. So then I dropped that idea and went into happiness itself at the workplace as my PhD exploration. Because by that time, a lot of personal incidents also had happened. One was my father illness in last phase of his life. He was, very critically ill for 16 months. And in that phase, I being a homeopath, I was treating him also. In that critical phase of his life, I was giving him a lot of support with my knowledge of homeopathy. And, I helped him a lot in that phase. But then that whole phase was so disturbing. My PhD was getting, obstructed again and again because of father's illness. Often I will find myself, running from Calcutta to Patna to take care of my father. And it was a very turbulent phase. And a lot of synchronous events were happening in that phase of my life, where I realized that actually there's a larger intelligence which wants me to go into another path. So, this happiness is meant to be studied in much greater depth, and I am meant to do it. I am being guided in that path by some higher intelligence. So that is what I'm trying to say. So then ultimately I could succeed in completing my PhD, and then, again coming to Amrita is also a very amazing story. Again synchronicity. My son was born on 29th March 2004. Okay, and Amma made entry into my life, on the next day. So it so happened that, when my son was born, just before that, I had dropped my wife to my native place, Patna. I was in Calcutta and had come to Calcutta, and my CQ Viva, comprehensive qualifying exam Viva, was scheduled for, the 30th, 30th of March. And on 29th morning, my brother called me up and said that, your wife has developed labor pain. We are taking her to the hospital. By 29th afternoon, the news came that you have been, blessed by a baby son. Okay. So I wanted to be in my, native place to see my son, but I couldn't go because I have a CQ Viva next day. Look at the synchronicity. Son takes birth, and next day there is a CQ Viva. And then after that, when I go home next day evening, 30th evening, on the train, it was a train called Vibhuti Express. Lot of synchronous events. So that normally you will not get tickets just like that. But, just before that, 2 3 days back, when Jan Shatabdi Express has started between Calcutta and Patna, because of which, it was a daytime train, a very fast train. If you know what I'm saying, Jan Shatabdi Express, it was a very, cheap ticket. Lalu Yadav had made it at that time. So lot of crowd will go in that train, and because of which, Patna Calcutta tickets were available in normal trains. So I got a reserved seat, very easily, and literally because of the Shatabdi Express, the pressure upon these Patna Calcutta trains were very less at that point of time. So the bogie was generally empty, And one old man walked from the other side of the bogie, and I am sitting this side. Now he could have sat anywhere, right? Because the whole train is empty. But he walked the whole distance and he came near me and sat in front of me by asking my permission. Can I sit here? I said, fine. And then he introduced Amma to me, and he started talking about Amma, that he had come to Calcutta and he has taken Amma's darshan. And I have no idea about Amma and darshan and everything. And like that, synchronous events. And then he gave me prasad from Dakshineshwar temple where Ramakrishna Paramahansa used to be the chief priest in this time. Okay. And then he introduced Amma to me, and then it's a very long story, and then when I came back from there, again, some incidents happened, and then, my father passed away after a few months. And then one of my friends one day told me, in that phase, I was going through a very deep churning. I was deeply exploring spirituality. So my best friend at Calcutta, he told me that, Rajiv, the way you are now, you will not be very happy in normal management school. You need to go to a place where you can, share these ideas, what you talk all the time about deeper aspects of life, where they allow you to share these things, and these things have a utility. They're very useful for the modern day youth. So he pointed out that, have you heard about Amma? My friend is asking me now. So I said, yeah, I've heard about her. Which Amma you're talking about? Mata Mrityunjayamai Devi. He said, yes, yes. How do you know? I then explained the story. He says, yeah, they have a business school in Coimbatore. Why don't you go and check their website? So the same day evening I checked, and then same day I sent an email to Dr. Sanjay Banerjee. He was the first dean there. So Sanjay Banerjee sir very immediately replied that, actually I'm no longer the dean. Somnath sir is the dean. You can write to Somnath sir, send your CV if you're interested. So I sent immediately. Somnath sir immediately replied that, when you come next time towards South India, you can come and have a look at the college and meet us. So again, synchronous event. After a month, I was looking for a place where I can collect data for my PhD. So it so happened, I was trying with many companies. It so happened that I got permission from Bharat Electronic Limited, Bangalore. Okay, so for data collection, I have to go to Bangalore. So then I informed Somnath sir, I'm coming to Bangalore after a month. So he said, fine, when you come to Bangalore, Coimbatore is just, next, 6-7 hours by train. You can just drop by and have a look. So I went with my family. My son was by that time, I think he was, I'm talking about 2006, 2 years old. So me, my wife and son, all three went to have a look at the campus, because wife also has to stay, right, if I join. That is how the whole story, started. And then I landed up in Coimbatore. And so it's a amazing series of synchronous events. Now, why I'm saying this is because, I would not have imagined, 20 years ago, that there will come a time in my life where not only I will be spending a better part of my life teaching happiness, but also, and that was a job actually, right? I'm getting money for that because I'm teaching, but I'm doing a job only. I'm getting paid for it, right? But then a time will come when I will volunteer and try to, commit, to selflessly share my knowledge, whatever I know, little bit, without thinking about money. Because the work that I am doing is so valuable, so important, that it needs to be done. Where you no longer work for yourself, you work for society. Loka samasta sukhina bhavantu. You really are inspired by the spirit of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. The whole world is one family. My students are like my children. That kind of spirit. Even earlier it was like that, but now, I have reached a level where there is no other desire except to, give whatever I can give before I die. You see, so that kind of spirit I have reached in my life. There's nothing personal to be achieved. I don't feel any motivation of that type. Name, fame, wealth, success, whatever. I mean, all those things have disappeared because I've realized certain things inside my own being, which is of oneness, that we are all one actually. Literally, we are all one. We are not separate. Separation that you experience is illusion. In reality, what is happening is that there is a very big life, very big one life, what you call God, and that God is created everything and is trying to express itself through the material body. And even when the earth was created billions of years ago, even at that time, that entity which created the planet already had visualized the future, where one day life will take birth on this planet, and that life will slowly evolve through different species and reach the human species. And in the human species, there will be capacity in the brain to develop so much that the human being can realize its oneness with the Creator. That is the grand purpose of life. And this I have realized in my inner being through experience, not through reading. So, and Amma is a very, very powerful spiritual master. This is my personal experience. So, without her, all these things will not happen in my life. I'm very clear about that. So, since I have experienced the grace of a guru, I understand the value of a teacher. I'm not a guru, but I'm a teacher, right? I'm not Amma, but I am a good teacher. So I have realized the value of a good mentor, value of a good teacher who can really do a lot to help people to evolve upwards. So this word, or phrase, evolving upwards, it's a very important phrase. We all are meant to evolve upwards. And that is the purpose of life. Okay. So today the world, I mean at large, what it is suffering from is a lack of a larger perspective of unity in diversity. The competitiveness between nations is nothing but a manifestation of competitiveness between families, between individuals, between relatives, and that has become rampant. Now, competition is based upon I win, you lose, or you win, I lose, right? It's a zero sum game, right? And competition is based upon I get all the goods and all the bats remain away from me. Let the bats go elsewhere, let the goods come to me. But when everyone is trying to get the goods and remove the bats, then those bats, go somewhere and become pollution and create unsustainability problems, isn't it? Do you follow what I'm saying? Because the bats have to go somewhere. If everyone is chasing the bats away and trying to get the goods only, then obviously wars will happen, fights will happen, conflicts will happen. So, in the evolution of consciousness, competitiveness is the third level. There are 7 or 8 broad stages of consciousness, through which we develop. So today I start, sharing with you this idea that there could be a hierarchy of development of the human consciousness. And many psychologists have anticipated this. For example, Abraham Maslow, which I have taught you guys, right? MBA students especially I have taught very, very, very elaborately. So Abraham Maslow was on the right track by giving the pyramid of needs that human beings develop on their needs hierarchy. First, the physiological needs where roti kapra makan you want to make secure. Then safety need, physical safety. Then belongingness. Then esteem, and then self-actualization. You're on the right track. I'm not saying that Maslow's is the most correct interpretation, but that's a good interpretation. Explains to a large extent the motivation of many people. But similarly, there, Jean Piaget was there, Lawrence Kohlberg was there, Carol Gilligan is there. Many people have, given this schema of hierarchy of development in psychology. I'm saying, right? But that is not the be all and end all, because even when you look at self-actualization, it is basically the ego actualization. A musician becoming a musician, or a sportsman becoming a great sportsman is an egoic development. The ego reaches the apex of its development. But there is life even beyond that. When a musician becoming a ultimate level musician starts guiding and helping others budding musicians to also develop their talent, that is where the ego is transcended. Maslow called it self-transcendence in his later part of his life. But then life is even beyond that. So, there are many schemas of looking at the evolution of consciousness. Now, one I will myself present, and I will also share with you maybe a few other perspectives from other teachers. I may share some videos also. That is my intention for today. And then I will take you along this journey along with me. That is one intention. Now, second intention is that so I'm laying the ground map basically how we'll be proceeding in future. Another thing which I want to do is that, which I can see right now with COVID crisis, and so many infections are coming, and more it seems to be going to be a challenge in the future. New infections are coming. These viruses are mutating very rapidly. So medical science is struggling. The predominant medical paradigm of allopathy, which is no symptomatic treatment in hospital, is basically crumbling or is facing a major challenge. It is pushing people to look to other avenues for their health, and for preventive health as well as curative, right? So I myself have personal experiences, in Ayurveda, homeopathy, etc., flower therapy. So I'll be sharing that knowledge also, so that you guys also can explore that and develop that, so that you can take care of your own health and your family's health. Because hospital treatment is very expensive also, and if you have to repeatedly visit hospital for some of your relatives, very quickly you'll run out of all your money. It's so expensive. So that's another intention, and why I'm doing it is because as your knowledge becomes broader and broader and broader, it also starts to gain depth. So breadth and depth are related, because more dots you connect, more you get a holistic understanding of the way the universe functions. Okay, you can in fact start to experience everything. Law of karma, how it is operating in life. You can actually experience that. How the karma that you are doing is coming back to you. You become very, very appreciative and very, very sensitive towards it. For example, if you have a smile on your face more often than not, if you treat people with respect, society acts as a mirror. It gives you back the same thing. If you smile at someone, most likely they will smile at you. If you do good to others, generally most people will have goodwill towards you, and when you need it, they will support you. That is how society functions. Now, what is that? That is law of karma, right? So as we become more and more evolved, now we start to notice many things, small things, big things, and at a certain level of consciousness, the divine starts to reveal itself to you in many different forms. Synchronicity is one favorite way by which divine shows that it cares for you. So synchronicity is a very big theme, right? So I don't know if you relate to this idea. Anyone wants to share if synchronous events have happened in their life, which were very strange but seemed very significant and helped you to make the right decision? Anyone wants to share? Maybe you have experienced such things. No, you
So
are very. Yeah,
can you hear me?
yeah, I can hear.
Yeah, so I mean, I definitely relate with this term synchronicity a lot. Um, it started for me, especially I'm just sharing my experience. Um, I relate to certain aspects that when you're asking, I mean, for example, there's this quote that forest has the music to the one who is able to listen, something similar to that. Similar way, I used to believe that, signs and some sort of a sign, the universe is responding back to certain questions that I have. So I used to ask a lot of questions to the universe itself whenever I was in a doubt or I was in a situation. And I started seeing certain kind of repetitive numbers, or I would start seeing a certain symbol that it is very personal. It's a very personal communication, just like how a communication is very personal with you and your loved one. A very similar communication between, it's very, very personal only to me and the universe. I mean, not everyone would understand it. So that's why probably I'm little shy to even share this. Probably it may not relate to everyone, but at least you can look at it from an
No,
outside
but this
view.
is the right forum to share, because on a Sunday we are here giving
Yeah,
our time. That shows dedication, right? And there's a reason why people are here. Those who are here, they already have some inkling of there being something deeper in life than what meets the eye. So you need not feel shy in this community. Okay,
yeah.
okay.
Definitely, sir. So it started with repetitive numbers, and there was one small tiny book which my mom had. I don't know why she had this book, or how did she got it also, I have no idea. But there was this book called Ainsley Numbers, and it's a very tiny, small book, and I had no idea what it is about as well. But somehow something, when I started seeing a lot of repetitive numbers, and one day when I saw my mom seeing that book or reading just the first 1 or 2 pages, it showed the glance that how you might start seeing repetitive numbers, and it might be a sign and some sort of a communication that you're receiving. So then I started opening that book up and started looking at where these repetitive numbers are coming up. It could be right from, for me it was mostly when I was driving to college. It was every day 1 hour drive and back, or anytime wherever I was driving. I would see the same set of numbers at various number plates. And when that happened, I used to take it up that this is something that's very, strange. And then I went to the book, I referred the number, and there would be some sort of a message that it's trying to communicate. That's why it started. And then from numbers, it also went ahead with various different symbols that I used to see. I used to see a lot of symbols of heart,
That
and
I remember you shared with me when you were at college. That heart
yeah,
you will see everywhere. Okay.
yeah.
Uh,
So it was very personal to me. Why it stuck with only heart is because that was something that was very unique, and I never saw that kind of a formation in nature and in so many repetitions itself. So whenever I used to have a deep question that am I doing a right thing, I would ask the universe that give me some sort of a sign, show me some symbols in some way, and it would show up very magically or very mysteriously. It would be as simple as a white cloud on the sky, or it would be a certain mark on the food that I'm eating, which would just be exactly like a heart. And again, I would doubt myself and question myself that, how is this happening? No, this could just be a random strange thing. It's not true probably. Then I would ask again, no, show me some other symbol or show me the same symbol again. Then I would really believe it. And instantaneously or even the same day, I would see it again repetitively, once or twice again in some other form. So that's my connection with synchronicity is what I wanted to share. Yeah.
So, actually, this reminds me, similar things happen to me also. And when I'm going, on a car, I will be seeing similar number plates. Right. So, I will share a little bit more on that theme. Is it okay to share a little bit more on this theme? Huh?
Of course,
Yes,
sure,
sir.
sir.
Yes,
It
sir.
could be very interesting. So, I was born on 11th March. Okay. So, I was born on 11th March. My wife is born on 29th June. So, 2 plus 9 is 11. My first son is born on 29th March, which is again 2 plus 9, 11. And my younger son is born on 11th April, again 11. So we are the 11 family. All four have the 11 as the. Now, if you learn more about numerology, 11 is a master number. Now, 11 means prayer. The meaning, the sacred, in the sacred, symbology in which every number means something. So 11 means prayer. 11 means prayer. So we are a family of souls who are born on, at some level connected to the number 11, which means prayer. Our life is a prayer. Now, what I'm offering today or since last week is a prayer. All my happiness classes were a prayer to Lord. So whatever I have done in my life, after I have chosen this path, is a sort of a prayer. Okay, that is what it means. And we are praying for what? We are praying that, good things happen in the world. We meet all these crises, we overcome all these crises, we solve the environmental sustainability problem, we solve all these diseases that are plaguing mankind. We come together as one family and we stop fighting. Russia, Ukraine, Uganda, God knows, so many wars, battles, religious fights, and all these, communal fights, all these fights stop. That is our prayer. That is our whole life is dedicated to. So you see, when I was born, that Almighty already knew my future, that my life will become a prayer, an effort to unite, to harmonize. That is what we are trying, right? Isn't it? That is what we are trying to share, trying to talk about the spiritual things, the great things, the beautiful things. Now, one may wonder that, we are a management student or we are a management professional. Why should, we follow this path? It is not a compulsion. The universe doesn't force anyone. It just creates the conditions, and takes care of all our needs, even lower order needs. But when we are ready to explore higher level truths, it starts to cooperate. So it is like a clap, no? Like a clap, you need two hands. So one hand is divine grace, other hand is our interest. Like no, Sasit said that he was asking for signs, and the universe was sending those signs. Then he said, I don't trust. It can be random. Please send again. Then it sent again. Then again he said, it is random. Please send again. He sent again. Millions of times it happened, right, Sasit? Same with me. Millions of times it happened. So when it happened millions of times, what happens? After some point of time, the skepticism inside, the doubt inside starts to subside. That actually there is some higher intelligence which is actually listening to me, it is actually responding to me. So that is a very great stage in the journey of evolution, and that stage leads to the next stage. It's a very high stage called surrender. It's called a stage of surrender. So normally what happens is we are trying to control the circumstances of our life using our intellect, and in the process when we are not able to control, we become anxious and we become frightened of future, isn't it? This fear of uncertainty. We don't know how future will unfold because we are not in control, right? But when such kind of synchronous events happen so many times, we start to trust a higher entity, a greater intelligence, which is capable of solving all your life's problems and taking care of your needs and your family's needs. So then you start to trust it little bit more, so you start to calm down, you start to relax. Then what happens when you are not worried about your personal issues and your family issues, because divine is taking care of it, then you can focus upon your dharma. What I can give back to life. Life is giving me so much, right? It is giving me this understanding that I am not alone. I am a part of a very grand universe, which is being led by a very grand and magnificent God. So I feel connected to that God, and then I want to give back to society. Why? Because that God is revealing to me that it is living through me, it is living through Sachit, living through Sneha, living through Saju, living through Satish, living through Neha, living through Vishnu, living through everyone. The same divine life, one God is living through all. So, I will now share my vision of life, how I look at life. So I will now share with you my vision of how I look at life, the way it is, and it's my experiential, thing which I'm sharing. So it's like this whole thing, this whole life. I'm trying to make a diagram of this. Let's say this is the entire universe. Okay, this is like a ocean of consciousness. So these dots or these lines that you see, this represents consciousness. The ocean of consciousness, and in this ocean of consciousness, there arises, different planets, galaxies, stars, and all whatnot. So let's talk about Earth itself. So on Earth, it seems that there are so many different people. Like, okay, maybe some of these people are part of my family, part of my workplace. You know, people living in other countries or whatever. Many people are there. So what is life? Life is nothing but this consciousness engaging with these different life forms, the different life forms. Consciousness engaging with different life forms, and so in a way, there is consciousness. There is a physical body and there is a mind. So there is consciousness. There is a body through which the consciousness expresses itself, and then there is a mind which a person is using to navigate through life. Consciousness is common to all. Life is common to all. Life is nothing but consciousness. Life is consciousness. What you experience as your life, or I experience as my life, is actually the one consciousness. Like one electricity is running different instruments like refrigerator or the bulb or the computer in the home. Similarly, the energy that runs life forms on the planet is one, and that is consciousness. That is my realization. Okay. And that is why, you will see that if you go deeper than the surface personality traits and look at any person, every person calls himself or herself as I. Is it not true? In every language, there is a word equivalent to I, which refers to me. Why it is like that? Why everyone refers to them only? It's a universal phenomenon. And not only that, every I seeks the same thing, happiness. And every I seeks to avoid one thing, which is unhappiness. Why it is like that? Why you want to avoid unhappiness and why you want to gain happiness? Could it be that our basic nature is happiness? Our basic nature is happiness. Our basic nature is consciousness. And this consciousness, the Vedas say that is blissful. Is blissful. So the name for this consciousness is in Sanskrit literature, it is, I made a mistake, just 1 second. You just ignore the first A, it is taking a lot of time. No, Sat, Chid, Anand, Sachidanand. So here the Sat part, SAT, Sat part means truth, Chid part means awareness, and Anand part means happiness. So this is how life functions. Everyone is alive, we can't deny that, the Sat part. Everyone is aware, we can't deny that. And everyone seeks happiness, we can't deny that. So this Ananda everyone seeks and pain everyone wants to avoid because that is our nature. Our nature is happiness. Okay. And we have all come from one, that Sat, that truth, that consciousness. Now where is the problem? Problem is here in the Chid level, the awareness level. Because what happens when consciousness comes and identifies with a form, it becomes a mind. The consciousness becomes a mind. Okay, the consciousness becomes a mind. Now this mind has to evolve. This mind has to evolve, for us to understand. So you are with me so far, right? You,
Yes.
you can just respond yes, no, so that I can.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So Sat, Chid, Anand is our real nature. Every one of us is like that. Sad, Chid, Anand. We are a part of truth. We have awareness and we all are epitomes of blissfulness, happiness. And that is why we seek happiness because our nature is happiness. When we are separated from happiness, we want to search for it because we can't live without happiness. So you see what happens to us is that from time to time we feel deprived. This feeling of deprivation arises. Deprivation. It can be deprivation of food, then we want to search for food. And when the food need is met, then we again become happy. Then if it is security, we are feeling insecure. We want to build a house and then we again become happy because we have regained our security. If we feel, separated from our loved ones, we crave to meet them. And when we are united with them, we are again happy. But you see what is happening in all these things. Happiness is not coming from outside. Happiness is our basic condition. Only when we feel deprived, we become separated from happiness. So happiness is our nature. It is a feeling of deprivation which is bringing unhappiness. But whenever the deprivation is met by the requisite object, the happiness is restored. So it proves to you that happiness is not coming from outside. It's only removal of the feeling of deprivation or removal of the feeling of pain. See, I'm talking about psychological happiness right now. Obviously, there can be physical pain. When we are in physical pain, obviously, we cannot be happy because we have to remove the physical pain, but I'm talking about the mental and the emotional pain or psychological pain. Whenever we feel deprived, only then no we want to regain our happiness by meeting the deprivation, overcoming the deprivation. Now there are things which are happening in life which are real, and there are things which are happening in life which are imaginary. Now most of the suffering, suffering is caused by imagination, not by reality. There is a real aspect of life, which is the life as it will be visible to any objective observer. Real. If you don't have any biases, any preconditions, you can see the reality. I will give an example. Let's say that your salary is 5 lakh rupees per month. That is the reality. And it is enough money to meet all your material needs for you and your family. Right. But your colleague gets a hike and you don't get a hike this year. Then what happens? You start to live in a imaginary world where you are deprived. Sorry about that. I'm using it for the first time, so I will make some mistakes. Please forgive me for that. So you start to have a imaginary pain of being deprived, because in reality you have enough money, but you feel deprived because someone got a raise and you don't have a raise this year. What is that? This psychological pain. This is not a real pain, this is psychological pain because you feel deprived. So, like that, in our life, we get many, many imaginary situations where we start to impose our preconceived notions about what is right, what is wrong, and that brings us unhappiness. So, as they say, pain need not become suffering. Pain is different and suffering is different. Pain is physical and suffering is psychological. Do you see this point? Suffering is psychological. Suffering is when you make an issue out of the pain. Why me only? Why this disease happens to me only? Why this bad incident happened to me only? That is a psychological type of pain, and that is suffering. So suffering is always optional. Okay. If we have sufficient amount of clear thinking, we need not suffer. So coming back to the Satchid Anand, where is the problem? Problem is this chid needs to develop. This chid, represented by the mind, it needs to develop. The mind needs to develop. Develop in what? Develop in clarity. Develop in clarity. That is what is needed. Are you with me so far?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So if the mind develops in clarity, such a mind gets rid of psychological suffering. There is no longer psychological suffering. So you now get in touch with your need rather than with your want. And these days, not only needs and wants, but there is also, you know, redundancy. So there are needs which need to be met. We need to meet them because they are real. Then there are wants which are kind of imaginary, not real. And then these days, because of excessive technology, we are getting redundancies which are completely unnecessary. They have no connection with real life. So needs can be met. Needs can be met. Wants can never be met. Wants can never be met. It's a very important relation. No matter how much you earn money, you will never be able to meet your want. No matter how much success you get, you will never be able to meet your want of success. No matter how much status is given to you, you will never be able to meet your want. Want is a black hole. This want is a black hole. No matter how much content you pour into a black hole, it will swallow everything. It will never give you happiness. Want is suffering. Want is suffering. You will have seen that you chase a goal, right? You feel that if I can get this goal met, I will be very happy. But then you meet the goal, and after a few days, you become bored with that new achievement, and your mind starts to crave a new achievement. So you set another goal. Then you achieve that next goal, then you set another goal. Then you achieve that goal, then you set another goal. So it's life is a never-ending race. That is how we are living these days. We are chasing happiness, which always seems to be in the future, right? Why? Because we are chasing wants, but wants can never be met. Wants are black hole. Only way out of this game of eternal chasing is maturity, development of the mind. And redundancies, clutter our consciousness these days. So many gadgets are being used. They clutter our brain so much because of confusion. The brain is confused. Confusion. Confusion is causing us to fall for redundancies. I don't only want a cell phone, I want the latest one. I want the Apple iPhone. And even in the Apple iPhone, the latest version. Now that is a complete redundancy. It's not necessary. I want status. Now what does status mean? It means nothing actually. Status, if you see, is completely in imagination. It's completely imaginary. It means nothing. It is just basically the necessity that you feel of external validation. You feel that your intrinsic self-worth depends upon external validation. That is what status need is all about. Okay. That is why Maslow realized that why often people are not able to self-actualize. Self-actualize. So I'll make the Maslow's hierarchy. Maslow realized that first of all, data. Maslow gave data that less than 1% people become self-actualized. Become self-actualized. Why it happened? Why it happens? Because we are living in a sick society. So here what happens? Here the self-esteem need level, people get stuck. Here people get stuck. Everyone gets stuck. Why? Because there is a rat race going on. Who is more successful? Who has more status? And in this rat race, both parties are losers. No one wins. No one wins. The winner is tense that he may lose the riches that he has gained, and the loser is basically is suffering from low self-esteem. Neither the winner gains nor the loser gains. This is the game, and that is why no one is able to reach here, which is actualization. And what is actualization? Actualization is doing the work for the love of the work. You sing because you love singing. You paint because you love painting. It's not about anything else. That is actualization. But people are not able to reach there because love need of a higher order, where you love, what you call passion. That is a very higher order thing, right? So these are the things, we have to understand. So even in Maslow's schema, as you can see, we are going through a hierarchy. And only then we are able to reach this level. So basically the mind's development is what we reach the conclusion. Or what I shared last few minutes, the conclusion is that the development of the mind is most important. So coming back to the Sad Chidana is a fundamental thing. This Chid has become confused. And this Chid can be brought out of its confusion only through the mind's development. And that is what we are trying to talk about. That how we go beyond these levels. So I've stopped sharing. Are you with me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, boss.
Anyone wants to say something or make some point or observation or ask something? Because
So
it
I
may
had
be,
to
you
share.
may be having a lot of questions also, right? Yeah, sorry, please go ahead.
Yeah, yeah. So this is related to the previous question which you had asked about synchronology. So I was just wondering, like, can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So in the past few years, I had done a couple of career transitions, and even though I did not know anyone from the field which I was going to get into, there has been always people who I have met like quite randomly. Like I would always feel that I was very blessed to make some connections which helped me to make these transitions very easily. So and I always like even like last month, like when I have these questions in my mind with uh, related to so many things happening in my life, I've always met those kind of people who had given me answers, like quite randomly. Even joining this session, like I wouldn't have imagined that I would again like sit in your class after so many years. So I just find this, like whenever I have these questions, at least from somewhere, like these things come to me, and that has happened multiple times. Like I've not been reflecting like how I used to do that earlier, but I was just thinking about it, and I thought I should share this because that has happened to me quite a bit.
Yes, actually, no, last 2, 3 months, no, I have not been keeping well actually. Since January end, I have not been keeping well continuously. Some issues with throat, and even today my throat is very bad. But I announced the class and I came and I took some medicine, and I'm still teaching, right? And I'm not. I can play videos and all, but that is not my nature. I want to share, and when I start the class, I lose this worry that my throat may not survive this ordeal. But once we start, somehow some divine entity takes care.
That's true.
I have never broken down in a class. Okay, no matter how ill I am, but when I'm teaching, the system never breaks down. Somehow it survives. After that, it may be very painful, but in that moment, in that time frame, it doesn't, collapse. So there is something which is taking care. There's
True.
something which is taking care. So what you can call God, you can call divine, you can call whatever, you can call grace, but that factor is there. As you are sharing, no, so I'm sure everyone is. See how this whole idea started. No, I had already completed the SAPG course. This I was teaching, and two students came to me, and they shared that no, they would like to stay in touch and somehow remain in touch. So I told fine, then I will you why don't you explore with other students? And then they went back and then they came with a list. And then I said, why not I use even this opportunity to connect with old students also? And then my son suggested that, Papa, why don't you record these sessions? Because this is so beautiful. You may put it up on the YouTube. Our channel is stagnant for some time. So that way other students can see, and maybe the world at large can see. Who knows, then some other people may get drawn towards you because what you are sharing is good only. So in a way, so like that, one thing leads to another, and today we are. I don't know where it will take us. Who knows, right? Now I will not be surprised, if this thing grows, slowly, and maybe more and more students join, and it becomes a movement because I'm calling it "Grow Your Light." Why? Because I believe in growing that light. I shared with you Satchidanand, right? That framework. So what is that? That seed has become clouded. As consciousness hits that body, in that particular body, the awareness becomes clouded. Is it not? It is like a dirty mirror. Consciousness hits the dirty mirror, and the dirty mirror is filled with light of consciousness. But light of consciousness is not able to express itself so beautifully as it should, because that mirror is very opaque, is very dull, is very dense, is very tamasic. So that same consciousness, which is divine consciousness, becomes clouded, becomes trapped, like sunshine has become trapped in intensely dark clouds. And that is where the violence comes, the low self-esteem comes, the jealousy comes, the fear comes. See, life can never die, is it not? How can life die? Is it possible for life to die? Is it possible for light to become darkness? Is it possible? It's impossible. Light can never become darkness. Life can never become death. So we are all life. One way to visualize is we are all coming from the same sun. We are different rays of the same sun. What is called Brahman or God. You can visualize a very great, grand, entity, which is the source of life in the entire cosmos. And we are one ray. Each one of us is one. Neha is one ray. Rajiv is another ray. And everyone. Saju is another ray, and like that. Anjana is another ray. Meghna is another ray. We are all one ray of a grand sun. And from that perspective, if you see, I'm talking about your soul entity. Your soul is like that. So at the soul level, each one of us is a child of God. Sad. Sad is God. But our chid is clouded, we forget that reality. And we are trapped on a planet, and I'm sure there are millions of planets like this across the universe. I'm sure by now you will have understood that, right? Even science understands that. It is simply impossible that life is only on this planet. It is simply by law of statistics impossible. The staggering size of the universe tells us that there is life in billions and billions of places like this. But on the particular planet where we are living today is not a very highly awakened planet. So what I and you are doing collectively is trying to wake up the planet. I am waking up for myself, you are waking up for yourself, and we are attracting other awakening people to this forum, because YouTube is a very open forum, right? Who knows, tomorrow Rajiv Sir may be teaching the whole world. It seems like that to me, that I am moving in that direction. Because today you ask me any question, I have the answer. You can try over the next many years, you will never be able to ask me a question to which I don't have an answer, a very beautiful answer. I have answered every question for myself. Because I have become one with that divine light inside me, my heart, right? So I am growing my light day by day, and I want everyone to grow their light day by day. That is the whole endeavor. Do you follow, Neha? So this miracle, how you are sitting in my class, is because the teacher has evolved enough to become selfless enough to offer the services free of cost.
Yeah.
And not worry about his personal life and health and whatnot. You see what I'm saying? So this is what is needed in this society. Each one of us in our personal space, wherever we are, have to give our light. We have to grow our light, and we have to share our light. So that the consciousness on this planet starts to evolve upwards rapidly. That is the whole endeavor. So as I was telling in the last class, there was a guy called Buddha, and just look at his impact on the planet even after 2500 years. What a man, right? What was his secret? He just sat under a banyan tree and grew his light. And then found the supreme light. And then spread that supreme light. Walking barefoot here and there, roaming around all over India. He just shared his light, and even today he's a beacon of light, right? So with technology, with internet, if a Buddha were to come today, what impact that Buddha will create, you can imagine. You will shiver in your spine, right? What is possible. So I am like that. I never worry about the challenges. I just grow my light and share my light. And I hope that technology, which is going in another direction, can itself be an enabler for bringing about a worldwide revolution of consciousness, where we have this pet theme of growing our light. Let individuals grow their light, let families grow their light, let companies grow their light, let communities grow their light, let nations grow their light, let continents grow their light, let the whole world grow its light. That is the whole endeavor. How do you respond to that? Is it not a beautiful thought?
Obviously, sir, it's a beautiful thought.
And the good news I'm sharing with you is that we are a part of the infinite supreme light. So there is no issues in growing our light, because that supreme light wants us to grow our light. So if all of us commit to growing our light, synchronicity will start to happen from today itself. For each one of you, my blessings are there. Each one of you will be guided by divine right from today. If you commit to growing your light, and that is my promise to you on behalf of divine. I can make such promises. Okay. You'll start to experience miracles in your life. Okay. Problems will start solving. All kinds of issues will start resolving. And in the last class I had shared, I'm again sharing. Buddha used to initiate people in 3 steps. First was Buddham Saranam Gacchami. That is, I surrender to the great Buddha, the illumined one. He has seen the light and he knows the light, and hence we surrender to the Supreme Enlightened One, right? The Buddha. So, mentor, the teacher, the guide is like a lighthouse of wisdom. Whenever I go off track, I can ask him, seek guidance, and he will again correct me. So that is very necessary, right? Because otherwise we may go astray. So that is very important to have a very illuminated guide. Okay. Then the second step was, Sangham Saranam Gacchami. Sangham is community. In the last class we had 4 people. Today we have 12 people, right? Maybe next class we'll have 24 people, and I'm sure it will grow. Okay. So what you can do is, no, you can tell your friends and community members that why don't you join. So now from next week onwards, anyone interested, even if he is not my old student, I will allow them to join. Is that okay? Anyone, your mom, dad, uncle, aunt, anyone, you can drag along. Let this number now grow. Okay. Meghna, can you spread the word around, among your companions also? Meghna, Nandana, Sneha, Saju, in your company also, maybe colleagues, whatever, maybe from TCS, many people may want to join. Let them try out, maybe watch a few minutes of the videos and let them join. It's okay. Because we really want to grow our light, the world needs it. So, Sangham Saranam Gacchami is, see, these kinds of ideas normally in the day-to-day life, people don't discuss. Because when you go to the job, again the deadline and the target and this and that performance and profit and metrics, all those things will dominate, right? So there you can't talk about these things. Sachit will not be able to comfortably talk about the heart and stuff in TCS, right? But you can talk about it here because you're in the right community. So what happens in the right community, you feel encouraged to bare your heart, to be authentic. You don't need to wear a mask. Wearing a mask all the time is so painful. So no, there should be some places where we can drop our masks and be real, right? So community is that Sangam Sandam Gachami, because we feel supported. Support is necessary, because otherwise people may make fun of us. Oh, look at this guy. He's going and joining a strange, community called Grow Your Light. What does it mean, grow your light? I can grow my light as much as I like. I can bring a LED bulb, no LED bulb. You tell me what wattage you want. I can get that. They think like that. Light means that external light. They don't understand the light that we are talking about. That light, when it grows in you, it brings wisdom, it brings courage, it brings love, it brings compassion, it brings clarity, it brings strength, it brings hope. That light we are talking about. It's called God. In a way, grow your God inside. That is the idea. So anyway, Sangam Saranam Gacchami. And then, what was that? Dhammam Saranam Gacchami. And that is so beautiful. What is Dhammam Saranam Gacchami? Follow the correct process. There is a process following which you can grow your light. That is Dharma. When you follow Dharma, your light grows. How the light grows? Light doesn't grow because God grows. No. God is already perfect. That Supreme Consciousness is already perfect. The God doesn't grow. The obscuration inside you reduces. The obstructions that you are creating because of your ignorance is reducing day by day, day by day. So our work is of a different nature. We are not growing our light by helping God. No. We are growing the light inside us by reducing our own impurities, so that the light can shine more powerfully through us. That is the idea. That is why it is called the work. What we will be doing now together is called the work. It is called the work with a capital W. What is this work? This work is of inner purification, inner development of our own consciousness. And that is what we will be exploring. How do we do that? And that process is called dharma. Dharma is the process by which you reduce your impurities so that light can shine more and more, more and more, more and more. So, it works both ways. You increase the actions and you increase the thoughts that are good in nature. Like, for example, if you're helping people, you continue helping people. Try to organize events, try to bring more people together and keep doing the good thing. So that is growing your light. But at the same time, on the other hand, when you feel frightened or anxious or jealous, try to look at them from where they're arising, what are the psychological causes, and try to work upon the psychological causes. Because behind every negative emotion, there is a blind spot in your consciousness. There is a faulty belief system that you're holding somewhere. What is jealousy? For example, jealousy is, you believe that, that person has got the good things and I'm not getting it. And that is what causes jealousy. But point is, in your mind, if you see deeper level, you have a fallacious assumption that things are happening randomly. Nothing happens randomly. Only what someone deserves comes to that person. There's a natural justice taking place somewhere. So if you want that goodies what they are getting, you have to earn those goodies. That is the idea. And if someone is enjoying the goodies which they have not earned, which they have somehow captured using some illegal means, then don't worry. There is no law of karma which will take care of that. It is not your problem. Your problem is just to do your dharma. There is a larger intelligence which takes care of everything. There is no free lunch in this universe. I talked about one thing called Rahu. No, Rahu is one of the astrological entities which gives you a lot of things very quickly, even though you don't earn it. But then it always gives things which causes problems in later life. You may get a lot of success very quickly, but the success may go to your head and you may lose your head. You may become so bloated with pride that then you have a tremendous fall. There are many cases like that. So you see, only way to sustain prosperity is to gain in maturity. Wealth is not the same as prosperity. Do you follow what I'm saying? Wealth is not the same as prosperity. Prosperity is a feeling of wealth. Someone may be a billionaire and still feel poor from inside. And someone may be earning only few thousand rupees and may feel very wealthy from inside. So the person who is feeling wealthy from inside is a prosperous person. But the person who is earning billions but is not feeling that abundance from inside is a poor person. That is where consciousness plays a role. When consciousness reaches a certain level of understanding, it becomes prosperous with very little. Its needs become very, very little. And wants are eliminated and redundancies have no chance to influence such a person. Okay. So I will share with you, one video from YouTube. Let us see. It talks about different levels of consciousness as consciousness evolves, and then I'll give my comments later in the next class. Can you hear the sound also?
Yes, sir. Audible.
To understand the 7 stages that lead to enlightenment, we first begin to understand the difference between stages and states. The stages of human and subsequent spiritual development offer us a way to measure our growth or human maturity. In the West, during the 20th century, there were a number of developmental psychologists who created some very clear and useful models of the stages of human development. Among them are Jean Piaget, Lawrence Kohlberg, Carol Gilligan, Abraham Maslow, Jean Gisbert, The models of these theorists can be generally said to follow the same developmental pathway. An egocentric stage, an ethnocentric stage, a world-centric stage. Like all developmental models, these stages follow in succession. The completion of each stage is necessary to develop into the next one. For example, in the English language, you must know words before you can make sentences, and sentences before you can create paragraphs. It is impossible to go from words directly to paragraphs. It is the same with the stages of development, whether human or spiritual development. States are different from stages. While stages of development have been extensively studied in the West, it is in the East that states have been most radically understood. In particular, the East has focused on spiritual or mystical states of consciousness. What is a spiritual or mystical state? A spiritual or mystical state is the present tense realization to varying degrees of a profound and intensely felt freedom. These higher states are inherent to the human body-mind, and much closer than one might think. Therefore, it is possible for them to be triggered at any time. In fact, states can be experienced at any time by anyone. There is no necessary prerequisite to experiencing or deeply intuiting even the highest of mystical or spiritual states, including the enlightened state. Profound spiritual states can also be brought about by meditation, devotional practices, self-inquiry, yoga, fasting, prayer, sex, satsang, darshan, exhaustion, near-death experience, NDE, brain injury, illness, or for no reason at all. Nevertheless, how the state is interpreted and understood will depend on the stage of human and or spiritual development one has achieved or currently in. Additionally, the stage will determine whether one is able to stably abide in that higher state. The difference and relationship between states and stages is that of the difference and relationship between perception and perspective. At the stage of human development of a child, they will have a child's perspective of any of their perceptions. A child's interpretation of what they perceive will be limited by their stage of human development, i.e. the development stage of their perspective. An adult's interpretation of what they perceive will in most cases be a more comprehensive understanding reflecting a higher stage of human development or a higher human development of perspective. When we go beyond merely human developmental stages and into spiritual developmental stages, the way in which stages determine our understanding of any state becomes even more important. The late Suzanne Segal, in her book Collision with the Infinite, A Life Beyond the Personal Self, tells of her sudden and complete loss of all sense of separate self while waiting to catch a bus in Paris. She remained in this state for the next decade until her death. The complete loss of the sense of separate self, or ego death, is a much sought-after state in many religious and mystical traditions, especially those of Advaita Vedanta and Zen Buddhism. However, for Suzanne Segal, this was an intensely unpleasant state. So much so that she was driven to the edge of complete insanity. Her mind just could not make sense of or interpret what had happened to her. Simply put, Suzanne Segal's current developmental state did not allow her to understand or interpret this state of continued bodily existence with absolutely no sense of a me. In fact, at the end stage of her pregnancy, about to give birth, she was driven to the brink of sheer madness by the thought, But who is going to give birth to this baby? It was only after years of psychotherapy and counseling from a Zen Buddhist Roshi that she recognized her state as one of profound freedom and was able to abide happily in it for the rest of her life. Societies, cultures, philosophy, and Zen. It is not just human beings who progress through stages of development. Societies and cultures can also be in varying stages of development, human and/or spiritual development. This accounts for the very different ways in which cultures, societies, and religions have accounted for spiritual or mystical states. Depending on the culture, society, or religion, experiencing a spiritual or mystical state could have one called a madman, a criminal, a political radical, or a saint. For the last 3 decades, Western philosophy has intensified its consideration of the relationship between stages and states. Postmodernism, or post-structuralism, has argued that we have moved past modern notions of hierarchies and grand narratives. In other words, stages. Rather, postmodernism points to networks and rhizomes as better reflecting the world. Of course, networks and rhizomes are much more similar to states than any hierarchy of stages. We can also see this tension between stages and states in Zen Buddhism. Zen Buddhism has 2 different paths. The path of gradual enlightenment, stages. The path of sudden enlightenment, states. For centuries, these 2 paths have been arguing for the correctness of their particular path. The play between states and stages can also be seen in those Eastern spiritual traditions and practices transplanted to the West, particularly in Neo-Advaita-inspired teachings. Generally, the Western Neo-Advaita teaching is some form of the practice of self-inquiry is sufficient. This practice will uncover the inherently real and natural state. It is enough to abide in that revealed state. No practice other than self-inquiry is needed. No effort to achieve any developmental state, whether human or spiritual, is required. It is enough to abide in that state. By abiding in that state, any necessary developmental stages of the body-mind will be achieved or moved through naturally and without effort. By abiding in the intuited, always already real state that any developmental stages, if necessary, will be completed effortlessly as one digests food. Often, proponents of the Neo-Advaita approach will point to the realization of Sri Ramana Maharshi as a teacher who suggested that self-inquiry was sufficient and that any effort to achieve higher stages was unnecessary. However, it is important to remember the cultural context in which Ramana Maharshi taught. India has, over 4,500 years, developed a spiritual culture that has as its primary goal, via its strict societal imperatives, the development of the human maturity necessary to qualify for any true spiritual practice, such as self-inquiry. This human maturity allows the perspective to not only recognize and interpret any state brought about practice, but also to potentially abide stably in any higher state. It is safe to say that Ramana Maharshi, before suggesting any practice, could assume at least this level of human maturity in the vast majority of those who came to him. Well, sort of. Anyone at any time can intuit any state whatsoever, including the state of enlightenment. This is because the enlightenment state is both natural and inherent to us. As the Zen Buddhists say, Enlightenment is ordinary mind. Therefore, it is possible for anyone, even someone with extreme psychopathologies and/or developmental aberrations, to intuit the state of enlightenment. However, it is suggested by the relationship between states and stages that a person with such psychopathologies would not be able to truly recognize the enlightened state, nor would they be able to stably abide in that state. Instead, what seems to happen is that they swing wildly between the intuited higher state and maladapted psychopathic states. There are many examples of people throughout history who may fit this description. Charles Manson may have been one of them. This may explain his reported charisma and how that charisma was able to convince others to do terrible and abhorrent deeds. It may also explain why some of Manson's seemingly insane utterances, when placed against those of enlightened sages and saints, often share a very disconcerting similarity. This compilation in the human stages of development, combined with a deep intuition of higher spiritual states, may explain the oft-reported antisocial behavior of some self-proclaimed spiritual teachers. Ken Wilber, the Einstein of consciousness. There is another option beyond choosing between states and stages. That is, a focus on the interface between states and stages. This approach does not pit states and stages against each other, but rather points to their interdependence. It helps to give one a much clearer idea of why both the stages of fully developed human maturity and the stages of higher spiritual development are both necessary. The transpersonal philosopher and writer Ken Wilber has made this interface between stages and states his life's work. Ken Wilber was 23 years old when in 1973 he published his first book, Spectrum of Consciousness. This book became a bestseller and still sells well today. The book also made Wilber very famous. People such as President Bill Clinton, Al Gore, Deepak Chopra, Richard Rohr, Billy Corgan of the Smashing Pumpkins spoke of the great influence that the book had on their lives. Soon, Wilber was being called the Einstein of consciousness and would become a thought leader in the field of transpersonal psychology. In Spectrum of Consciousness, Wilber maps into a spectrum, or stages, an integration of many different types of mysticism and Western psychological approaches. Aldous Huxley, the author of A Brave New World, had attempted a similar mapping of spiritual development across many religious traditions with his 1945 book, The Perennial Philosophy. The great Indian mystic Sri Aurobindo also developed a similar integration of a variety of mystical stages and states. Wilber was in agreement with Mahayana Buddhism and Advaita Vedanta in believing that reality is ultimately a non-dual union of emptiness and form. However, most importantly, he believed that the form part of the equation of form or emptiness was subject to development over time. This opened the door for Wilber to develop a schema of stages of spiritual and mystical development. Wilber pointed out the difference between waking up and growing up. Wilber said that while there had been thousands of years of creating methods and practices for waking up in the East, the developmental models and practices for growing up, i.e. achieving full human maturity, had only been discovered in the West in the last 150 years. It was this interface between the states of waking up and the stages of growing up which became Wilber's integral theory. Integral theory offers a developmental model in a single framework of the journey from archaic consciousness to ultimate spirit, i.e. God or ultimate reality. Today, Wilber's integral theory has been taken up not only by those with a spiritual practice, but also by many companies and even governmental agencies. Wilber's guiding principles of integral theory are: evolution of development occurs by transcending and including, not by erasing what came before. For example, the evolution to the developmental level of a single-cell organism did not wipe out molecules, but included them into a greater order of complexity. This pattern of evolution and/or development occurs with all phenomena. Rational thought does not eliminate emotion, but includes it into a great developmental level of consciousness. Industrial societies did not wipe out agriculture, but transcended agriculture into greater levels of efficiency and prosperity. Human or spiritual development requires that we include and integrate all previous stages into something greater, not by wiping out the previous stage. Ken Wilber's integral theory, while very useful, is also extremely comprehensive and well beyond the scope of this video, even in a fundamental form. However, Wilber has acknowledged that he was very much influenced in his formation of integral theory by the 7 stages of life as taught and communicated by the late spiritual teacher Sri Adida Samraj. Adida's 7 stages of life offers a much more succinct model of the human and spiritual evolutionary process necessary to any kind of spiritual development or practice. The 7 stages that lead to enlightenment. What is the total process of human growth? This schema of the 7 stages of life starts with birth and moves through 7 stages all the way to enlightenment. It is offered here as a guide that may be of help to anyone who wishes to understand a stages or states approach to spiritual practice. The fundamental points are: all human life develops potentially in 7 stages. The first 3 stages are the stages of human functions, i.e. the physical, emotional and mental. The 4th stage is the stage of feeling surrender as the sense of separate self to Source, God or mind, and marks the start of spiritual life. The 5th stage is that of spiritual ascent into the mind and psyche, and may include mystical experiences of all kinds. For some, this can be a rather brief stage, depending on the degree of psychic material held by the person. The 6th stage is that of ego death, or the transcendence of mind and the sense of separate self. The stage can be experienced often quite easily as a state, not recognized or stabilized by the achievement of a stage, convincing one of the non-necessity of growth through stages. The 7th stage is that of full enlightenment. Though there are 7 stages of natural human growth represented here, most humans stop growing in the first 3 stages. Most humans remain complicated in the first 3 stages of life and do not even successfully complete the first 3 stages. These complications, or stunting of our natural growth through the first 3 stages, shows itself, according to Adida, in dysfunctionality, often manifested in extreme forms as addictions, in 3 primary arenas of life: money, food, sex. If one's energy and attention is captured by those 3 arenas of life, if one has not realized a natural, easy and non-addicted functionality in all those areas of life, one will not have the free energy and attention necessary to begin a spiritual practice. The first 3 stages of life usually take up the first 21 years of a person's life. First stage, 0 to 7, individuation. Child successfully individuates from the mother. Child enjoys conscious relatedness to all others and nature. Signs of the completion of the first stage of life: individuation, socialization, cooperation, and sensitivity to nature. Second stage, 7 to 14, socialization. development of sensitivity to etheric energy, to existence, to others, and to nature, development of socialization or optimal relationship to others via a feeling sensitivity to the etheric dimension and one's effect on others. Signs of the completion of the second stage of life can associate responsibly, positively, and relationally with others. Third stage, 14 to 21. Integration. Adaptation to the psychic dimension of existence. Development of the will, the thinking mind, and the psyche. Signs of the completion of the third stage of life. Fully prepared physically, emotionally, ethically, physically, and mentally, and with enough free energy and attention, not caught up in money, food, or sex, to enter into real spiritual practice. The spiritual stages, from the fourth stage to enlightenment, or open eyes. These first three stages are the stages of human growth, which prepare us to take up the fourth stage, or the beginning of the stages of spiritual growth. This movement from the third stage, the completion of human maturity, to the fourth stage, the beginning of spiritual growth, is the primary crisis for most of those who wish to begin spiritual practice. The fourth stage is foundational for the spiritual stages that follow. The fourth stage is the practice of feeling surrender as the sense of separate self to your higher power, to consciousness, to awareness, to source, to reality, to God. It is not to identify oneself as source, consciousness, awareness, reality, or God. Rather, it is to feelingly surrender one's body and mind and sense of separate self to source, consciousness, awareness, reality, or God. The fourth stage is a devotional practice of God apart, referred to in Hinduism as bhakti. The fourth stage is the necessary foundation stage of the fifth, sixth, and ultimately the full enlightenment of the seventh stage of life. It is important to note that it is the body-mind that is the medium of spiritual transformation, not merely the mind. As one feelingly surrenders body and mind and the sense of separate self ever more deeply, one begins to show emotional and psychic signs which may open up one's psychic dimension. The fifth stage is the realm of shamans and shamanistic practices. The fifth stage may be a very brief stage for some people, depending on the degree of psychic material to be surrendered. The sixth stage is when one realizes their identity with Source, consciousness, awareness, reality, or God, and now purified through the feeling surrender of the body and mind and the sense of separate self, can now recognize their true identity and abide as that stably. The seventh stage is the overcoming or growing out of the error of the sixth stage, which is to identify exclusively as Source, consciousness, awareness, reality, or God, at the exclusion of the world of appearances. In the seventh stage of life, both oneself and the world is recognized as Source, consciousness, awareness, reality, or God. The seventh stage is Sahaj Samadhi, or open eyes, in which everything is seen as nothing but the radiance of God.
So there was no problem in watching, no? Clearly.
Yes, sir. It's good.
So I will not take many comments. I would just like to respond. To hear your responses, how you feel, and then we'll take up in the next session when we meet again. So let me
Yes, sir.
want
It
to.
was so beautiful. Shall I start, sir? Shall I give my experience after
Tell.
watching this particular?
Yes, Hemant.
It was so beautiful. I was feeling I am not in this world. And really, I want to be the other side of the world where I can feel joy, joy and blissfulness of the universe. So that is my experience.
Okay, very good. Yeah, other people want to share what thoughts, questions, ideas, whatever comes to your mind.
How do you
Just
figure out in which
yeah.
stage you are in?
Pardon,
Sorry.
Neha?
How do you figure out in which stage you are in? Like, is there a exercise?
They described, no, generally the first three stages generally most people are in, mostly. First is, where you develop a identity for 7 years, you become a person. Because babies are, no, it is, a lot of research says that baby feel one with mother and the environment. Then they grow a sense of self. That is the first 7 years. Then you become socialized. You learn the cultural norms. Then 14 to 21 is when want to study for a career, job. So most people are in that stage only. So in a way, it's like individualism and emotional and rational development. It's just that for most of us, the third phase continues throughout the life. We are always trying to become more rational, learn more, become more successful. Because the feeling of insecurity never goes away. So I feel that because of poor parenting and societies, the way structure, people become very wounded emotionally in childhood, and because of that, those
Yeah.
emotional wounds, force them to always seek more and more security and more power. Why people are so power hungry? Because they feel very insecure, and that insecurity has been created, I think, in very early childhood for most people. So most people don't grow out of the first three stages. That's what it, my understanding from observation. So this is one schema, and there are other schemas also. So we'll see. So this is given by one particular person. Then some people say 12 stages, some people say 16 stages, but they look at it from different perspectives. So, but this was one good schema which tells us that money, job, career is not the be all and end all of life. There are no higher stages also to you all to. So we can work towards that. So I feel that personally, as we become more and more mature, we go from the sense of narrow self, narrow ego to identifying with the community, society, and slowly we move forward, and there may come a time when we feel, real union with the universe, which is the highest stage. We feel one with the source, and Amma and all are at that level where I'm sure they experience oneness with that highest source, and as a result of that, that tremendous intuitive knowing of many things which normal minds cannot understand. Often people share Amma knows people's thoughts. Many things Amma knows, which is very mysterious. How he knows? So there are, it seems, higher avenues of accessing knowledge. So that is the highest stage. I'm not at that stage for sure. So, but all of us can grow. So that is it. So we'll stop for today, unless someone wants to share something.
Sir, actually, my question is how we can grow faster.
There is no way to grow faster. Very sorry to disappoint, but there is no way to grow faster.
Sir, I am not disappointed, and I am working hard. I want to be live in the other side of this universe, but trapped in this
No, you are
universe.
making one mistake. There is no other side of the universe. In fact, there is no other side to the universe. Universe is here and now, and there is no other universe. If you want to live in the other side of the universe, you'll stop living here where you are right now. So that is where dharma comes. Your dharma is to do what job is given to you as best as you can, taking care of your wife, family, parents, your job, your workplace. Everything is which is given to you. You know, it's given in trust. So no, the trust is a theory of life. You have to just discharge your responsibilities as best as you can, and that is the fastest way to grow. And the slowest way to grow is to try to grow faster.
I got it, sir. I got it.
If you if you want to grow very slowly, try to grow very fast. That is the surest way to
No,
defeat
sir.
your
This
purpose.
is this is a trap. Actually, this is the not right path to grow. I understand. That's why I
That is
fulfill
not
my
the right
duty.
way to think. That is not the right way to think. That is not the right way to think. Okay, that is Rahu. Rahu is impatient, wants to grow very quickly. But here in this path, we cannot grow more quickly than what is possible. That psychopathic example you saw in that video, right? There are some psychopaths who had accessed higher levels of consciousness, and then they became a great disaster for themselves and for others. It happens. So in the West, there is a fetish for trying to grow faster, like what you are saying. There are a lot of false gurus, who are masquerading around telling that I will awaken your Kundalini. It's something called Kundalini. And they will play around with all kinds of, rituals and undesirable things and half-baked t-shirts, and they will do all kinds of nonsense, and somehow some people's Kundalini at higher level may get opened up prematurely. It is said now that half knowledge is dangerous knowledge. It is like that. That is why this video talks about stages and states. States given to a person before that person has reached the corresponding stage is dangerous. That is why fast growth is dangerous. In nature, everything grows at God's pace. Look how a baby grows, look how a tree grows, how a plant grows. Everything grows at God's pace, a comfortable pace. If you try to speed up the baby's growth, no, from 9 months to 6 months, it is very dangerous thing. Tomorrow science may try such things. But I will tell you what will get birth is not something very desirable. Okay. Because things are working the way they are working in the most beautiful fashion. That is Dharma. The way God has laid down the processes is the best way. We can never improve upon God. Science is realizing this. For every problem science solves, creates 10 more problems. Okay. So there is, on this path, there is no way to grow faster, and there is no need to grow faster, and there is no need for having such desires also. That is where surrender comes. We need to surrender to the higher intelligence. Just see where you were 5 years ago in consciousness and how fast you have grown, right? And you
That I
should,
fully agree.
that you should be thankful for, right? So
I
you
am
are.
thankful to you.
No, I am not the important factor here. God is the important factor here. It is God which provided you with a teacher like me. I would point towards God, the divine, not towards me. We are all nimit. Nimit is like, instruments only in the hands of divine. Okay. And that is the correct understanding. So nothing happens randomly, especially when you grow in consciousness. Nothing happens randomly. As you will see, as you will grow more and more, you will realize more and more that nothing happens randomly, and that is a good news, because when higher intelligence is taking care of all of us, our personal challenges, issues, family problems, challenges, issues, everything can be taken care of by divine if we surrender and if we let divine take care. Okay. So, but the important thing is, and the happy thing is, that we can grow, and we must grow, and we will grow. Okay, together. And and to answer Neha's question, how to judge where you are, you just think about your internal consciousness. What are the most important issues that face you, that you generally think about? Are they emotional in nature? Are they related to job security? Are they related to status? Are they related to what? You can do an analysis of those kinds of factors, and you can see where you fall in that map. A person's motivation, no, the core motivation, that reveals a person's stage of consciousness. So whatever is your core motivation, from that you can see where you stand, because you will know your core motivation, right? What it is. And then there are other ways also of approaching development of consciousness. We'll see in future sessions. Vishnu, you are here. Can you hear me, Vishnu Vardhan? I think he is not there. Any other comments? Saju, you want to say something?
No, sir.
Sir,
Vishnu, you want to say something? I just wanted to hear from you. You can unmute and speak if you are speaking something.
Hello, am I audible?
Now you're audible. I want to see your face also, if you don't mind. Can you just switch on your video? Many years I have not seen you.
Yeah.
Hi, Vishnu. Good.
Hi, sir. Hope
Hi.
you're good.
Uh,
Yeah.
any comments, any thoughts? You were there throughout, I just noticed. Yeah.
Yeah, I missed the first session, but this session I'm there actually. No, my comments were normal. Like whenever I hear this session, I feel like good and all. But whenever I again go to the normal life, the rat race begins. Like even though I don't want to get compared, somehow I just fall into that loop. Is what I'm thinking actually.
Mhm.
Like how to get rid of that falling out of that loop and not not being sensitive to others' comments actually.
Yeah, we need to work upon ourselves. Slowly it will come.
Yeah.
It's okay. That's okay.
Yeah.
We'll share resources and we can read and stuff. As we go along, we can look at books also. We can sometimes, have reading sessions also and interpreting maybe. As we go. We'll see how it goes. Right?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
So, shall we say bye bye for today?
Yes, sir. We can share bye bye, but sir, please share the link of that particular video in the group.
We don't worry about it. Okay. I'll share. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you so
thank you,
much.
sir.
Bye.